In classical antiquity, the movement of aromatic resins from the southern edge of the Arabian Peninsula to the Mediterranean dictated the wealth of empires. Frankincense and myrrh were the core commodities of this economy, essential for religious rituals and medicine across the Roman world. The supply originated in modern-day Yemen, while the demand was centered in Europe. To connect the two, traders had to move tons of cargo across the Arabian Desert. This map shows the primary trade routes, functioning as shipping lanes that snaked northward through the desert to the port of Gaza. This environment operates as an engine of thermodynamic friction. Surface temperatures routinely exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a barrier that is as much a physical obstacle as an empty space. Historical data indicates that traversing this zone without a pre-established logistical chain was essentially a death sentence for merchants and animals alike. Survival required treating the desert like an ocean, where total control over the few isolated supply points translated to total control over the flow of goods. The Nabataeans established themselves as the exclusive masters of this geographic friction zone. These highly engineered facades carved into the rock demonstrate a level of architectural sophistication that challenges the traditional image of the Nabataeans as simple nomads. Their power was built on infrastructure, identifying and developing localized, hidden water sources that functioned as the only viable ports in the desert. The lack of any alternative water sources forced all global trade traffic through these specific geographic nodes. By maintaining a monopoly over these hydration points, the Nabataeans dictated the terms of the global spice trade. They integrated the desert's lethal hostility directly into their strategy, using the environment to exclude competition. The Nabataean state functioned as an infrastructural cartel, extracting value from the absolute monopoly of hydration. Maintaining this cartel required a mastery of the hydrological reality of the Hijaz Mountains. During the winter, intense storms trigger catastrophic flash floods that tear through these narrow canyons with devastating force. The logistical problem is one of time. Millions of gallons of water move through the landscape and vanish into the porous sand in a matter of minutes. The Nabataean engineering response was to terraform the canyons, capturing the kinetic energy of these floods before it dissipated. They constructed a massive surface catchment grid, using miles of gutters and dams to intercept every gallon of runoff. This stone water channel, carved directly into the Red Canyon rock, illustrates the scale of this terraforming. These gutters funneled the violent floodwaters away from the porous ground and towards centralized storage hubs. This allowed the Nabataeans to build a civilization not on steady river flows, but on the capture of transient, catastrophic desert energy. Capturing the water was only half the struggle. Surface evaporation destroys standing water almost as quickly as the sand absorbs it. To prevent this loss, the Nabataeans moved their entire supply underground into massive cisterns. Because the local sandstone is porous, they developed a specialized waterproof hydraulic cement to seal the interior of these vaults. This diagram shows the water funneling through terracotta piping into subterranean vaults lined with that waterproof cement. Moving the water below ground created a stark temperature contrast between the baking heat of the surface and the cold storage below. This combination of thermodynamic isolation and the lack of sunlight effectively eliminated evaporation. By pairing kinetic capture with subterranean storage, the Nabataeans successfully neutralized the desert's most lethal variables, creating a closed-loop logistical engine. The wealth generated by this system eventually attracted the attention of the heavily armored Hellenistic empires to the north. In 312 BC, a Greek army under Demetrius I Poliorcetes launched an invasion into the Nabataean territory to seize control of the trade routes. The Greek soldiers marched into a landscape that appeared to be a shimmering, waterless wasteland. Within days, the invading troops began to suffer from severe heat exhaustion and the physical effects of dehydration. While the Greek soldiers were dying of thirst, they were standing directly above millions of gallons of water, hidden just inches beneath their boots. The Nabataeans avoided pitched battles, simply retreating further into their logistical grid and leaving the desert to do the fighting for them. Historical accounts by Diodorus Siculus describe the invasion as a collapse, with the Greek forces surrendering as they realized they could not survive the environment. By weaponizing the landscape, the Nabataeans converted the environment into a defensive wall that was lethal to anyone outside their ranks. This defensive capability relied on a protocol that can be described as hydraulic cryptography. The Nabataeans masked the access points to their cisterns, ensuring the surface appeared entirely barren to anyone who didn't know where to look. They used cryptic visual markers, such as this decorative relief, to identify the locations of their hidden reservoirs. Authorized state merchants were trained to recognize these subtle markers, allowing them to navigate the landscape and access the water, while outsiders saw only empty rock. This created a profound asymmetry. An invading legion requires a massive, visible logistical train to survive, while a Nabataean merchant needs only to recognize the location of the next valve. This system protected the Nabataean monopoly for centuries against the greatest military powers of antiquity. Through this brilliant engineering, the Nabataeans converted a totally hostile wasteland into a secure, invisible operating system. Without the coordinates to the water grid, the Arabian Peninsula functioned as a perfectly engineered weapon of mass destruction.